Hi, I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Connor.
and I promise this is interesting. Although I can't actually promise it, can I? Because I don't know what we're talking about this week.
You don't, I do.
Connor's rabbit hole.
I'm the keeper of the secrets this episode.
All right, I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready to be blown away.
Oh boy, that's a lot of pressure. I want to start this episode by asking you a question.
I love questions.
I know you do. Do you have any favorite historical facts?
I'm sure I do. I can't think of any of them right now
Okay,
off the top
well,
of my head. This is a basic one. Anybody who has seen Peaky Blinders knows this,
Hmm.
but they called them the Peaky Blinders. They were a very prominent gang in Birmingham, England, shortly after the First World War.
right.
And they called them the Peaky Blinders because they used to sew razor blades into the edges of their peaked caps.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
if they were attacked, they would just take their hat off and slash your eyes out.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's awesome. I'm going to start doing it.
That's a fun little historical fact.
Fun is a word for it. Yeah. I don't know why that's where my brain went, but that's immediately. I was like, tell them about the eyes getting slashed out.
Can I tell you my dad's favorite historical fact?
Yes, please.
So my dad, who is a listener, a friend of the podcast.
Dedicated friend of the podcast.
His favorite story is that has to do with the history of potatoes, which you and I are both of Irish, Scottish descent.
I take the potato seriously.
Yeah, well, so does my father. Anyway, he's told this story a lot since I've like throughout my life growing up as an adult. And I decided to finally do a little research and find out the actual like truth behind this story. So here's how the story goes. Okay, this one's for you, Pops. So back in the 1700s,
okay, I'm there.
Yeah, Frederick the Great was the king of Prussia.
Okay.
Prussia, I didn't know this.
Modern day Germany.
Modern day Germany and Poland and like that whole area. Prussia was an interesting like landmass. One of his interests was in land cultivation, draining swamps, building canals, settling new towns. One thing he really liked was introducing new crops to be cultivated.
So like a salad of the week situation?
Exactly. But this one was the potato. He wanted to introduce the potato to the people.
Good for him.
Right? So he ordered his subjects to start planting potatoes, knowing that there was going to be wars and famine and the whole thing. That he thought this is going to be the way our people kind of survive all these things.
Gotcha.
So they refused is the problem.
They didn't like the potato?
Well, they thought, there's like a couple of different reasons that are cited. The potato either looked weird or it was considered a foreign food or it was perceived as like poor people food.
Fair.
Right? So there's like kind of a bad perception to the potato, I think. So the king decided to change his tactics a little bit. He ordered potatoes to be planted in the royal fields, and he spread word that they were the most important and special crop available, and that nobody but the king was allowed to have them.
I see what he's doing here.
Yeah, right. And he even posted armed guards, 24-hour armed guards
to guard the potatoes
around the fields to guard the potatoes, right? But he told the guards specifically to ignore all potential potato thieves and to even accept bribery in order to gain access to the potato fields.
What a job, by the way.
Right.
This is incredible. So I was working the graveyard shift at a luxury condo here in Los Angeles.
Of course.
And the job was just to be awake at night and watch the security cameras.
Right.
That was literally my whole job. So if anybody pulled up who wasn't supposed to pull up,
right.
There's
a number you're supposed to call.
Who's very strong and scary, was supposed to go out there and confront people and say, hey, get out of our driveway.
Right.
And one time somebody actually did pull up into our driveway. And I went out there and was like, hey, you got to get out of our driveway. And they did not listen to me for even a second.
Really?
And I had to get the valet guy to go out there and actually handle it. And he did. And I just stood there and was like, yeah.
What was his name again?
Rich.
Shout out to Rich.
Shout out to Rich, who really beat the shit out of that guy and saved us both from getting stabbed, probably.
Yeah, you got some wacky stories from that job.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say I'm the muscle.
No, I don't think that's not in the first 20 words that come to mind.
I'm not the intestines even. I could barely digest what I was looking at.
So, where was I? Okay, potato thieves, right? So, after all this, the king is set up. Naturally, people were intrigued.
Now they want the potatoes.
Yeah, and they started sneaking in and stealing the potatoes. and planting them in their own fields to grow.
We've been the same forever.
And to this day, King Frederick is colloquially known as Potato King. And people have actually made it a tradition to place raw potatoes on his grave at the royal palace in Germany. So it's like it's had a long-standing effect,
Gotcha.
this idea. This kind of this story is going to lead into a couple of other things I want to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know what my favorite historical fact is?
Does it have something to do with Brandon Sanderson?
It doesn't. No.
Amazing. Then no, I don't know what it is. I'm always a little scared that we're about to venture into that territory.
Never. I'll never subject you to that.
You will, for sure.
Unwillingly. It has to do with carrots. So another famous tuber.
A root vegetable.
A root vegetable.
Okay,
yes.
we're covering the fruits of the dirt today.
What do you know about carrots? If I asked you what's a fact about a carrot, what would you say?
I would say they are high in vitamin A.
Okay. What else?
They come in different colors, not just orange, but
do.
also purple and
Okay.
brown. And
when you eat a carrot, what is the effect that might have on a person?
I think if you eat too many carrots, it can turn your skin
It
orange.
can do that. Does it have a positive effect? Is there any positive effects that you know about from eating carrots?
What does vitamin A do?
I don't know.
Good for your skin.
It is good for your skin.
I don't know.
Well,
am I missing an obvious thing?
what I'm getting at is historically, I think people know carrots as being good for your eyesight.
But that's a hoax, isn't it?
We're going to get into that.
Ah, okay.
But that is a commonly known fact,
Like,
is that
you eat carrots
you eat
and
carrots,
it helps your eyesight.
yeah, it makes your eyesight better.
Yeah,
right?
how'd that get started? Because
Well,
there's no backing behind that, I don't think.
I'm going to tell you.
Hell yeah.
So, the fact about carrots and their helpfulness in their eyesight is a product of one of the most successful wartime propaganda campaigns in history. Started in World War II.
What?
Stick with me here. It started in World War II.
The Nazis?
The English
Oh,
were getting absolutely pummeled.
they were losing. It was
By the
not looking
Germans,
good for a
yeah.
second there. Yep.
Shout out to the Yanks that came in and helped.
Over there. Oh no, wait, that's World War I. I'm not a strong patriot, but I hear over there and I start swinging my arms
Right.
like when Johnny comes marching home.
Exactly. So yes, World War II, England is losing to Germany pretty badly, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest advantage they have, and the only way they're able to keep the Germans at bay from absolutely just walking over England and taking over.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Can I get 3 guesses?
You get 3 guesses. Yes, absolutely. Lindsay's 3 guesses.
Okay. The England's Navy.
No.
Fuck. Okay.
Well, that was probably part of it, but
I
no.
felt really confident about that one.
Mhm.
I don't know if I have 2 more.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It has to do with like air and planes.
Was it the like the Royal Air Force? What do they call it? The Royal Airmen?
It is the Royal Air Force. That is what the Office of Propaganda would have you believe.
Then okay, then my
What's your
third
third
guess
guess?
on the advantage, just secret messages
Secret
that
messages.
were being sent by that gay guy who was played by Benedict Cumberbatch. What's his name? Very impressive
I
mathematician.
forget his name too. What was the movie?
Imitation Game.
The Imitation Game. That's right.
Yeah.
I'll throw up his name so that anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll do a
Godspeed.
graphic.
But
yeah.
yeah.
So the biggest advantage they actually had was the invention of radar technology, and the Germans.
I never would have guessed
The
that.
Germans were not privy to it quite yet. So that's a huge advantage.
Interesting.
Right? And it allowed them to spot planes at night and shoot them down. And the Germans are like, how on earth are they doing this? Our planes, we have the best Air Force, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we're losing to these people and they're shooting us down at night. But the English were starting to get worried that this advantage was going to get lost because the German spies or spying was a big thing during this era.
Yeah.
Right? The spies and propaganda and networks of espionage.
Yeah, and not to give the Nazis any credit. I'm not going to give them any credit.
Okay.
They were not the stupidest people on the planet.
No, typically
so
not.
if something was not mathematically working out
Right.
in their mind, they were like, they can zero in on what the difference is,
Typically, right?
So they're pretty good problem solvers, I would say.
So the British have this big advantage, and the government crafted a very deceptive lie to explain why their pilots could see so well at night. Because the Royal Air Force eats carrots as a major part of their diet, and carrots have a vitamin that make your nighttime vision better, which is not totally false. There is a vitamin in carrots that supposedly helps the health of your eyes generally.
Sure.
but it doesn't do
give you night vision.
Exactly.
We don't become Transformers if you eat enough carrot stew.
Right,
Wait, did the Germans actually believe this?
Not only did they believe it, everybody did. So the lie went so far that the British government actually made posters and films encouraging the regular citizens of England to eat carrots so that they would have better nighttime vision in order to find their like safety bunkers during nighttime air raids and bombings. So not only did they convince like the Germans, they convinced the English populace that this was a very true fact.
That is an Argo level,
right?
Convincing.
Yeah,
like, how are you seriously standing up in that room with a straight face and your stupid little PowerPoint saying, I got it. Carrots. Hear me out. We just tell everyone to eat carrots. It gives you nighttime vision. I mean, like, the English government must have been like, is this really the best we can do?
This is the best we got. I know. Imagine giving that presentation to Churchill.
Yeah.
Like, truthfully.
Like, here, I know what you're thinking.
I know exactly what we're going to do.
But
so it was a far-reaching lie, but it worked. And the Germans totally bought it. And they managed to keep their secret about the radar for just a little bit longer than they should have, you know?
Yeah, gotcha.
And the lie worked so well that people to this day still believe that carrots are good for your eyesight. These two stories kind of represent my rabbit hole this week, right? It's about stories and lies that get told over time and how they kind of shift perceptions of people, right? It's also kind of about how people in power, whether it be corporations or governments or individuals, shape public perception for their own benefit, right?
You know what this makes me think of? This makes me think when I was in middle school, there was this thread going around online with a bunch of facts that seemed almost believable, but just crazy enough that made you go, whoa, like, how did that happen?
Right.
I remember one being like, a duck's quack does not echo in a cave and nobody knows why. And I ate that fact up.
Yeah.
I told everyone that. I was like, that's the spookiest thing you've ever heard, isn't it? Like, why can't we solve that? That's crazy. Sound works the same way except for with a duck.
Right.
That's the most random thing in the world. And it was just like a social experiment to see like how quickly misinformation can spread.
Right.
Given the internet.
There was another one I think I know about called, it was like the spiders in your mouth thing.
Oh yeah, like 8 spiders a year.
You swallow 8 spiders a year when you're asleep.
I believed that one too.
Yeah. So everybody did.
I think what we're finding out is I'm gullible. And I don't like that.
I think humans are gullible. So I think public perception is a very like big part of these like lies that I'm going to talk about, right? And there are consequences that kind of stretch across generations that we still haven't fully unraveled. And it made me kind of think, like, what lies are we still existing in today?
Like, what lies do we still believe?
Right, exactly. And there's small ones, right? Like, I don't know if you're aware, there's a thing in older Koreans that if you leave a ceiling fan on or any kind of fan on while you sleep, you'll die. And they believe that it's because the fan will like blow air away from your face or suck air away from your face. And it's like this older generation kind of grew up with this idea that was a thing. And I think, I don't know for sure, I might have to correct this in the record, but I think it has to do with like wartime energy conservation.
That's where my mind goes most of the time.
But there are still people who believe it. Like if you talk to an older Korean, they'll be like, well, yeah, no, you don't, that's not probably true. But if you ask them, it's like, well, would you leave a ceiling fan on when you've slept? And they'd say, well, no, probably not. Like,
like it still makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of want to follow this thread because if one lie about carrots can change the entire way that generations afterwards think about nutrition, like what happens when deception takes on bigger stakes, you know? Like lies that feel justified are a little different, right? This lie specifically about carrots helped us during World War II.
Right.
So we know there's kind of a means to an end there. And it's harmless enough, right? Who actually cares? Like nobody's going to jump off a building because they had too many carrots thinking that it would make them fly. Yeah,
like you're misleading the public, but in a way that's tricking them into eating vegetables that are good for them ultimately.
Exactly.
So it's like, there's really no harm in it, actually.
Right, exactly.
It's a pretty good deal.
What happens when lies are like weaponized for the sake of harm?
Then we kill those people.
Yeah. I'm going to censor that.
No.
This is going to be shown in our court date.
Well.
So I want to jump back in time a little further from World War II. Okay. Not too much further. It's going to be the late 1800s. Okay.
Not a great time, to be honest.
Not an awesome time.
I would not want to be around at this time.
But there's another war going on.
Right.
Not World War II. It's taking place in the streets of New York.
Mhm.
and it is the War of the Currents. So,
What did you just say to me?
War of the Currents.
Is this okay? Wait a minute. Is this that movie that my friend Rhea is always sending me? It's like these guys. Hey, good, come out to play.
No, that's oh gosh, I'm blanking on the movie name. That's
What is it?
Warriors.
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 Come
yeah.
out to play.
No, that's not this. That's a 1970s or 60s movie about
like skateboarders.
a modern retelling of the story of the 1000, which we can go into at a later date. But
it's not that. Is what you're telling me.
Not that. No,
Okay.
This is the turn of the century New York.
Okay.
Right. And who other than Thomas Alva Edison is going to be leading the charge for the War of the Currents?
I hate this guy.
It's between Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse.
I want to put Edison's head in a food processor. Just hate that man so much. Evil. Stole ideas, tortured animals, probably hit women.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stand this guy. So I'm rooting for Westinghouse, Team Westinghouse.
Well, and so just to be clear, it is George Westinghouse and the Westinghouse Corporation. But I think it's important to point out that it was Tesla that
obviously
was the person who invented the thing that Westinghouse was representing. So
that
the War of the
gay
Currents.
Little man with a mustache.
Yeah. The battle is over which form of electricity would power the world. Direct current, DC, or alternating current, AC. So when you have like a power brick and it's like AC.
No, I don't.
12 volts, DC, 120
I've never
volts.
seen one of those in my life.
Never mind then. Well, it's just know that it's a type of current that is different. Direct current is like straight. It's how energy particles or electrons will travel down a line.
Sure.
Alternating is like it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So
okay.
Doesn't matter for this sake. We're not going to go into the minutiae of electricity in this bit.
Okay, and why can't we use both?
We can't.
Then what are we arguing about?
Well, we're going to get into that.
Oh, brother, these fucking people.
So I think we all know at this point that Thomas Edison was
the worst.
Kind of a dick.
Yeah. Top 10 men I want to hit in the nose upwards so it stabs his brain.
So in this war, he's on the side of DC power.
Why?
Okay. Because he opened an investor-owned power utility company that specifically used DC power as its primary thing. And he was trying to power New York City with his company, right? So he saw AC power as a threat to his financial standing, right?
No.
Yeah.
In this capitalist
to
economy?
His empire, yeah.
What do you mean? There's competition?
So he had to do something to swing the cord of public opinion in his direction.
Okay.
Right? So he did what any politically savvy industrialist at the time did. Mudsling.
What does he have against Westinghouse?
Nothing. The Westinghouse is trying to take his money. So,
well, I know, but what's the mud that he's going to sling?
Well, we're going to find out. So he wanted to make AC power look dangerous. That was the whole thing.
Okay.
Right? How did he accomplish this?
He killed Tesla in the street and said AC power did it.
Not quite.
Damn it.
His master plan was to hold seminars and tests of a scientific variety where he would publicly electrocute animals with AC power.
Okay. Right. Naturally. I mean, I'm stupid for not having thought of that.
Right.
Honestly, that's on me.
This was also part of the campaign, kind of ran parallel to the campaign for developing the electric chair. So think about that. We didn't have the electric chair before all this because we didn't have DC and AC.
The electric chair was animal tested.
It was. The way they found out about which was the most effective method for the electric chair was by electrocuting dogs.
Dude.
I know. Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Oh, we have so got a meteor storm coming.
Yeah. So they would electrocute dogs to figure out the best technique for the newly developed electric chair. And it was decided that AC current should be used because it was the most deadly.
I'm going to rip their livers out. I hate these people.
This decision was later revealed to be a move by a man named Harold Brown, who was exposed after the fact as a secret employee of Thomas Edison. So this guy, Harold Brown, was kind of the father of he was the progenitor of the idea of AC power is too dangerous to use on people. Watch, we can kill animals with it. And we developed the electric chair for it. Right?
But wait, this is a stupid idea because then I want to see DC power. I'm like, okay, then prove that DC power is safer.
And nobody said that except Westinghouse.
Why?
Westinghouse is the only person saying that.
I'm a genius and so is Westinghouse. That's all I'm learning. Can't fool me.
So it wasn't just the demonstrations. They wrote and published pamphlets, booklets, photos, films of these discoveries. It was serious. They were really taking it seriously. And they even almost named death by electric current being Westinghoused because he was the father of AC current instead of electrocution. So instead of electrocution, we almost have Westinghoused as the way to die by electricity. Isn't that crazy? So the first man to ever be sentenced to death with the electric chair was a man named William Kemmler. Okay. The chair was built to use AC current. And Kemmler and his lawyer argued that it would be cruel and unusual to use it against him.
Decent argument there.
No.
Now, what did he do? I want to know.
I'm sure it was murder. I didn't actually look into his crimes.
But we have to know.
I know.
Did he just steal a baguette or did he kill 25 women?
Let's put a pause and I'll Google it really quick.
Okay.
Ask me again.
What did Kemmler do?
Kemmler murdered his wife.
Okay, well, I'm not feeling so bad for Kemmler right now. They're making a good argument.
Yeah, exactly. Now, his lawyer was funded by Westinghouse in order to make the argument that this is not fair, ultimately. So they lost the argument, and Kemmler was set to be executed by electric chair with an AC current. They flipped the switch, and he was still alive. Didn't work. They kept adjusting numbers and flipping the switch, and he just would not.
But he was getting electrocuted.
He was getting electrocuted.
Oh my God. This is like that scene in The Green Mile.
Exactly.
Oh God.
People who were present said it was far worse than a hanging.
Dude.
That was their comparisons. Like, this is worse than any hanging I've been to. And Westinghouse historically said they should have just used an axe.
Dude.
Like, it would have been more humane. So.
Did they have to switch over to DC?
Would have been funny.
Yeah.
All of this only ended when the big power companies at the time finally just merged. And now we know them as General Electric and Westinghouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that a normal, if you take equal measures of DC and AC current, deadly. They're all just deadly.
It's electricity.
Exactly. So now most of the world actually uses AC power anyway, because it's kind of just better in most aspects for long wires and the way you set up transformers and everything like that. It's more efficient. There are still people in cities that use DC power, but AC is typically the one that's utilized across the world, right?
Well, I think it's generally accepted that Tesla was the better scientific mind.
Yes,
than
correct.
Edison.
So here's the rub. Technically speaking, AC power is more dangerous, right? And it's because of the thing that it does to the human body when you actually get electrocuted by it. It leads to muscle contractions, which is what happens when it's like somebody grabs a live wire and they can't let go of it.
Yes.
That's dangerous, right? And that's AC power.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So wait, DC power, it would just blow you back kind of thing?
I think so. Or it would kind of shock you, and it would hurt, but it wouldn't,
Yeah,
contract
because
your
I'm thinking
muscles.
I've only ever been shocked, by a light switch or something, and it's immediately you pull it away.
Well, and that's AC power typically.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The power coming out of your wall is typically AC, I believe.
Then
I could be totally wrong.
Don't know anything.
It can also cause your heart to fibrillate and beat irregularly.
Yeah.
Right. So was Edison right?
No.
Technically, he didn't lie about AC current being a little more dangerous, but he fudged the truth for the sake of profits, right?
He's wrong.
Yeah.
He's wrong about everything.
And you could argue that this led to some pretty severe suffering for basically everybody involved.
Well, especially Kemmler, who was just
and
sitting
all those
there.
dogs, all the animals.
Yeah, why did we have to do that? What is wrong with that? I don't understand. These animals have been following us around since we were cavemen, and we look at their little sweet faces and wet noses, and we think, I'm going to test some products out on you?
Right, exactly.
God.
Exactly. And there's an old video of an elephant being electrocuted with AC power as well.
Greatly disturbing.
It is. It's actually not related to this at all. That elephant was going to be executed because it kept attacking people.
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah.
It's so weird. We're so kind and thoughtful and conscientious.
And that's when you go into it, they were going to execute it because it kept attacking people. It was later revealed that the trainer was abusing it.
Obviously.
So
I'm so frustrated. This is something I'm deeply passionate about. I can't stand when someone is bitten by a dog or bitten by a snake or charged at by a bear or a moose while they're in their natural habitat. And then they demand, you need to go into the woods and kill that bear, hunt down that fox that attacked me and my child.
Right.
It's like, they live here too. The fox is just being a fox. You're being a human by wandering into their little foxhole and probably eating their food and scaring their mates away.
Exactly.
Like, they're just trying to stay alive. Like, you have so many resources at your disposal. You have a house. You have a house. They live in a hole in the ground.
Right.
Who has the power here?
Exactly.
You need to go kill the fox? Grow up. I hope you get bitten more times. I hope you get eaten by the bear. Fuck you, bear gonna bear.
So yeah, that's I agree with you. And I think I think it tells a lot about like the ethics of humanity as we've gone on, that we don't really.
What ethics of humanity?
Well, we're not electrocuting dogs in the street anymore, thankfully.
Wow.
You know,
We've come so
low bar.
far.
I know, a low bar. But anyway, so yeah, that was that. I think this story also kind of falls in line with what I'm talking about, right? Like these lies that get spread for the sake of something,
Mhm.
right? This next one is a little more disturbing to me than
Oh
this,
dear.
because this is like the battle of two conglomerates trying to make
Corporations.
money, right?
Yeah. That story always ends tragically.
It does. And ultimately, like, we're living fine because of it. Like, nobody actually cares about AC or DC current in the modern idea, right? And we all kind of know Edison's a dick, so it doesn't really matter. This one disturbed me and continues to disturb me when I learned about it originally. And it has to do with modern day, right? So really it's to do with the US government, right? And it has to do with the food pyramid. Are you familiar with the food pyramid?
I am familiar with the food pyramid.
Okay, what do you know about the food pyramid?
I know that generally it starts, it shows you like whole grains and carbs, and then you go to green vegetables and
protein,
like high
and dairy.
fiber and protein. And exactly. The different food groups that you should be eating every day.
And what do they say
healthy.
is the most essential in the food pyramid? What's at the bottom of the pyramid?
I actually don't know. Did they put the vegetables down there?
No, they put the carbs down there.
Well, here's the thing.
Okay, tell me.
And I only know this because I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Yes.
Everything turns into sugar when you eat it.
It does, yeah.
Carbs are just like the most, I don't even know what the correct word, like what the right verbiage for this would be. Carbs turn into sugar the fastest, I guess. Like fat and protein take much longer to break down and turn into sugar.
Right. And carbs are kind of the fuel for our body.
Right.
Generally.
So, I mean, you need carb. They give you fast energy, but everything turns into sugar. So I guess that's technically not a lie. Why do I feel like this has to do with Wonder Bread? Oh,
we're getting into that. So ultimately, what led to the food pyramid study, it was done by the US. It was done by, I believe, a US government organization was studying like what nutrition was a big thing around this time. It was the early 1900s, right?
Huh, okay.
Now, people who were very interested in this to help fund the study, people like the Kellogg Corporation paid a lot of money to help fund this study.
Kellogg family is not known for being an honest family.
What does the Kellogg Corporation make?
Cereal.
And what is included in the food pyramid as being one of the biggest things at the bottom of the food pyramid? Cereal.
Carb.
Carbs, and carbs. The Kellogg Corporation paid to literally change the scientific dissemination of information on nutrition in America.
Now, who ran this study? Who was paid off is my question.
That's a great question. I couldn't find a very distinct answer. I might have to do a little voiceover and do more research, but it was a scientifically backed study by private money, the Kellogg Corporation.
Right.
And it wasn't a mistake, right? It was marketing, essentially. We're really worried about nutrition, right? It's like how, I don't know if you've ever watched Mad Men.
Yes.
Yeah. Lucky Strikes, they're toasted. Right?
Yeah.
We're the only cigarette company not talking about how cigarettes are bad for you.
Right, because we can't say they're good for you.
Right.
But we don't have to talk about how they're bad for you either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so what's the best way to get people to eat cereal?
To say that it's good
Make
for you.
Make it so it's essential.
Yeah.
Yeah. It fundamentally altered how people ate for decades. I had a food pyramid in my textbooks in school.
Same, yeah.
And they showed bread and cereal and all these other things, right? Now, it doesn't mention like eating Kellogg cereal. Like, there's no Kellogg stamp on the food pyramid.
Right, but in the early 1900s, like how many companies were making cereal?
Exactly.
You didn't have 25 different companies making it. You had Kellogg's and probably the first guy to make cornflakes.
Exactly. Oh, and it's now we have a population that's kind of, in America at least, that's over reliant on carbs
And over processed
and
food.
over processed food.
Yeah,
Exactly.
which cereal is not necessarily bad for you, and carbs are not bad for you. But it
Done in a certain
processed
way.
food,
Yeah.
like eaten consistently, that is bad for
Right.
you.
Well, it was something I saw recently on a podcast with this guy talking about diet and exercise and the vegan community. He's like, back in like the 90s,
Yes,
vegans in the 80s and 90s, you would not see somebody more healthier than a vegan.
not true
They were
anymore.
rail thin. They were just sinew and muscle. Now, it became popular to become vegan, right? It became kind of a fad. And now vegans have all these processed foods. And now what do you see with vegans? Like they've got protein deficiencies. They're not as skinny or as fit.
They're anemic.
They're anemic.
Yeah.
They've got health problems, right? And once you start over-processing your food, it's bad for you.
Yeah.
You
They
know?
call this too like lazy keto food because like I generally trying to eat really low carb because it helps manage my type 1 diabetes.
Right.
And there are like lazy keto foods that you can buy. They're really expensive, so I don't
Right.
buy them. But they have like protein bars and low carb cereals and like protein chips and things like that. Super processed, but low in carb, and they're good in a pinch. But if you're relying on those to eat every single day, not as good for you as broccoli.
Well, and there's a wonderful documentary that showed this. Typically, when low fat was a thing for a little while as well, right? When things say low fat, it also typically means double the sugar. Because fat is what makes food taste good. And so if you take out the fat of processed foods, it makes it taste awful. So how do you make it taste better? Throw in sugar, right? So the Kellogg Corporation has had an immense effect on the idea of nutrition in America, right? And it made me wonder, like, who else has had this kind of effect? Are there other companies, other corporations that have paid for scientific studies to be done with kind of a wink and a nudge of like, just give us a more favorable thing, not us specifically, but our market, is big egg, like are eggs actually bad for you? Have we been, kind of bullied into believing that eggs are a staple breakfast food, I don't know. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to get at with all these stories. Like, what's the thread here, right? All these lies started as narratives, ultimately. It was a thing that somebody wanted to spread. Stories designed to kind of shape the perception of a public's opinion of something, right? And some of these were well-intentioned, like the carrots. Right. A lot of them are self-serving, like Thomas Edison, But the thing about the lies that I realized while writing this is that they have a purpose. And the problem with lies is that it's very easy for them to outlive their original purpose, right? The people who founded Kellogg's are not around anymore. No. They don't care about their stakeholders, right? Thomas Edison's been dead for years and years and years. And the British government, as far as I know, is not in threat of being marched on by the Germans anymore. But these lies are kind of like landmines that got planted 70 years ago and we just kind of forgot where they were. Yeah. And they're laying around everywhere, but we don't know to look for them.
Well, and it's especially difficult now because we all have access to so much information and we have access to each other. So the amount of conflicting information I've heard on nutrition specifically is it's very difficult to sift through what is true and what might not be true. What is someone getting paid to say? What is like actually proven in the scientific papers? Who paid for those scientific papers to be written? Who wrote them? Or do they work for somebody? Have they been paid off? Yeah. Like I've gone to the doctor several times and the doctor has tried to sell me a certain type of vitamin because they're in business with these salesmen and they get, commission or however that works. Yeah. On selling me these vitamins that might not be bad for me, but they're also not going to do the things that they're telling me it's going to do for me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, it can be very difficult and very confusing trying to figure out what is actually healthy. And I just read an article on this actually. Vegetarianism and veganism were really popular a few years ago, and they're kind of becoming less popular. It's all about protein right now. Everybody is pushing protein. Eat 100 grams of protein. How I fit 150 grams of protein into my diet
That's
every
a big
day.
thing. Yeah, you see that on YouTube and Instagram and stuff.
And people are going back to eating meat and butter and eggs and like these foods that for years we've been told like they raise your cholesterol, they heighten your risk of cancer. They're bad for you. They're bad for your heart. They're bad for your brain. And now people are like, no, like protein deficiency is what leads to all of that. So cut back on fats or cut back on carbs and focus on protein.
Yeah.
It's like, we can't figure out.
And that's the thing. In that mess, it gives room for people to move in with an interest,
Yes. Right.
to make money.
Exactly.
Right. And that's the thing about these lies. It's like they're interesting stories ultimately, and humans gravitate towards interesting stories. That's our natural affinity. And they'll lodge themselves in kind of our collective consciousness, and they get passed down through generations and reinforced by repetition. Carrots are good for your eyesight, right? And when we finally realize that it's a lie, it's kind of too late to turn the ship around sometimes, right? How do we correct 100 years of the food pyramid being in textbooks? We were kind of joking about Koreans, like older Koreans being scared of turning fans on, but like you and I know the food pyramid. Like, it's not dissimilar in a way.
I think so much of it is just considering the source.
Yeah.
Who is telling you what? Like,
Right.
Are you getting this information from a doctor that you know and trust? Are you getting this information from somebody who got a degree in food studies and nutrition from an accredited university?
Yeah.
Or are you getting this information from a bald guy on Instagram?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, because it's weird, right? Because snake oil salesmen used to have to leave town after selling.
Yeah. No, they stick around now.
No, they stick around.
They set up YouTube channels. Yeah.
So I want to go back to my dad's favorite story about the king and the potatoes.
Yes. Oh, right. King Potato.
King Potato. Yes. The Potato King, he's actually known as.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. It's a great little story, right? About a king who cares about his people and just wanted the best for them.
I'd say it's a pretty good lie.
Yeah. I think it might also be a bit of a fabrication. Yeah. I found 2 other instances of this exact same story involving specifically potatoes and kings tricking their population into using them. One was in France and one was in Greece, and it took place around the same time. So did the story actually happen? I really can't say for certain if it did or not, right?
I'm sure at some point in the long line of human history, this has happened before.
Exactly.
It might not have been Prussia, but it was someone somewhere.
Now, I do want to post a link because the history of the potato is actually very interesting. And there's some good books on that that I didn't have time to read.
God, we're always pushing Celtic culture on this podcast.
Well, this is actually German culture, believe it or not.
No, so we are the potato people. These are one thing. It's that and poetry.
If we want to be really specific, potatoes come from Peru. So
we don't get anything. God damn it.
So I can't say for certain if the story actually happened. I think it might have. I do think it might have. It for
sure did somewhere.
At some point. But I think it offers valuable insight into how a story like this can take root, much like a potato.
I cannot wait to break up with you as soon as this podcast is over.
And how, much like the peasants in the story, who believe the potato to be a royal food, we'll take these lies and hold on to them for years, not knowing that they were given to us by somebody else, right? And that's my poetic ending to all of this.
Oh, we really went on a journey with this one.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm upset. I got heart palpitations going. I'm mad at Edison. I'm mad at the corporations. I'm thinking about Luigi Mangione and that whole thing now. Why? Just corporations in the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
I'm mad at all of it.
So yeah, that's my rabbit hole this week is, I don't even know what to title this, but it's the lies throughout history. Yeah, it's deception of truth throughout the whole of human history, you know?
Well, thank you for that very upsetting rabbit hole.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll sleep terribly tonight. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Connor.
And I told you this would be interesting.
We're going to be back next week with Lindsay's rabbit hole.
Yeah. And it's a big, juicy, amazing one. So get really excited. Do you want a hint?
I would love a hint.
Prepare to be cold.
To do with the Cold War?
No.
Oh, boy. I'm excited.
It's a good one.
All righty. I'll see you next week.
Bye. I'll see you in like 2 minutes.